who were expected to
our own, see, understand. I have.
I cannot.
So over here,
Sai, when lots of panelists have talked about the secularism and the basic structure of the constitution.
Right.
Well, India, I think, has 6 classical languages. And there is no word for secularism in any of the India's classical language because concept itself was absent throughout the civilizational history of India. But still, India was the most diverse, most tolerant, most plural society without the concept of secularism. So how do you respond to this idea that we have to have a uniform civil code because of secularism? Is there any other rationale behind it? Or do you really want to go back to the old system where different caste and communities can follow their own tradition like the opponents of the UCCC are talking about?
So let me start first of all by wholeheartedly endorsing the opening remarks of my dear friend Anand Ranganathan in letter and spirit. Second, I think it's important to understand that we are beating around the actual issue here under the pretext of uniformity. Which community in this country has a problem with equal treatment is the specific question that you must ask. What are the issues and what are the areas? 1, on the question of polygamous marriages or monogamous marriages. 2, on the question of succession. 3, on the question of maintenance and any other issue such as child marriage or forced circumcision, so to speak. Okay, these are the issues. If these are the issues, which is the group or the community under question which has a problem with this? So when people start using my opening remarks as a way of getting out of this debate, I might as well bring the issue back to the center of the table and say, sorry, the issue in question is Muslim exceptionalism. I don't wish to beat around the bush. And if that is the issue, it makes very little sense for certain panelists to hide behind other communities in my position or Vishnu's position to say, no, look at them, since they have not committed, why should we commit? And the argument that is being presented is, well, Hindus are not open to uniformity. Let's see if you're okay with interference with your personal laws. Our personal laws have already been interfered with since 1955. We were never consulted with this. The majority community was never asked any kind of questions. Today, the Supreme Court says that the new law, apparently, according to the Supreme Court, is before you pass a legislation, you're supposed to have a discussion with the community. That too with respect to farmers and farm laws, where we afforded this kind of an opportunity. If that is not the case, you're actually speaking with a victim majority here, which is already suffering the consequences of Nehru's forcible introduction of the Hindu code in the 1950s. So, I don't think anybody has the moral authority to pontificate to Hindus with respect to state intervention. If there is a community in this country that has been constantly interfered with by the state, regardless of who's in power, it is the Hindu community. That is a fact. Second, look, here's the important issue. You want to address these issues. I think whichever government is interested in discussing uniform civil code must actually drop the discussion on the uniform civil code and must grow a spine to discuss the issue of Muslim exceptionalism as opposed to sending chadars to Ajmer. Okay? That is something for the government to do. 3, the next question will be, well, is this consistent with India's commitment to secularism? Sorry, India is equally committed to the question of human rights and India is equally committed to the question of gender justice and social justice. It is possible for this country to take a position against polygamous marriages, child marriages, forced circumcision, and even with respect to succession without having to resort to uniform civil code. Because the moment you start talking about uniform civil code, their argument is going to be, it's unenforceable, it needs to be done, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. Sorry, I don't need to go the path of uniform civil code to enforce any of these aspects. The state has the power to interfere with any kind of social injustice. That is the precise reason that Article 17 was introduced in the Constitution for what? To abolish untouchability. Then should the state have actually indulged all those people who opposed this particular issue and kept its hands holding with respect to abolition of untouchability? When Article 25(2)(b) was introduced with respect to the entry of former untouchables into temples, the state has taken a particular decision, and that was a Hindu-specific intervention, that was a community-specific intervention. Did secularism come in the way of this kind of intervention because it's a Hindu community? No, it did not. So if the Constitution has shown the way that the Indian state reserves the power, constitutionally speaking, to interfere with a single community, provided there are legitimate grounds to do so, why should we resort to uniform civil code to interfere with Muslim exceptionalism on these specific areas? Let's have a discussion on this. So now uniform civil code is no more the discussion. Let me see what their position is on Muslim exceptionalism.